it isn't even on.
Yeah, that one would be too much, I think.
That would be my camera.
Well, the intro music isn't working, but the camera's working and the music is working.
I can
So
mix an intro
here we go,
music.
Chris.
Beep boop beep
All
boop.
right, here we go. We're gonna need to do that again. Ready? Here we go. Start.
Beep boop beep boop.
All right,
beep.
so Talkin Tigers podcast. We are live at the Dupo Quarterback Club. This is going to be a fun episode. Chris, who we have today?
We have the Honeybee Bransons with us today. Local legends, Library Honey, and among other things. We have some really, really smart people here with us today. And this should be a fun podcast. Tell us, everybody introduce yourselves.
All right, I'm Em. We counted it out. I've been beekeeping for about 18 years now, since I was 6. I am the newest iteration, I guess, of the Branson beekeepers, and I have an entomology degree from the Washington State University, and I work over at Bayer as a research entomologist.
And what year did you graduate Dupo?
I graduated Dupo in 2016.
All right, well, another great Dupo graduate there, going on to be an entomologist for Bayer.
I'm Mary Kupenhofer, and I am Em's mother. And I have been helping out with the bees off and on since I was a kid, and we're not really going to go into how long that adds up to. But yeah, I've been helping out.
When did you graduate Dupo?
I graduated Dupo. That's going to let them figure it out. I graduated Dupo in 1996.
And I'm Dennis Branson. I guess I started it all. Back in the late 50s, when I was a kid, I'd go out in the summer and spend with my aunt and uncle, and my uncle was a beekeeper, and he had me smoke for him while I was out there with him. And I liked it. And then later on, like in 1977, there was a guy in Granite City that was getting too old, wanted to sell a couple hives. I went home and told Linda, hey, I'm going to buy a couple of beehives for $100. She almost passed out because she said, I'm allergic to bees. And I've been doing it ever since and been keeping busy with it.
So you started your own in 1977, but you've been at this for even longer, much longer time than that. Walk us through what it takes to be a beekeeper a little bit.
Well, it's a lot different now than it was then. They've gotten a lot more complicated. They've gotten a lot more diseases. They've gotten a lot more issues and problems. They've gotten more problems with weed killers and bug killers and things like that than they used to have. Farmers didn't use that much of that stuff. And when I first started, basically there was about 4 diseases that we had to worry about. 2 of them were bad, the American and the European foul brood. But the European you could treat. The American you couldn't. If your bees got American foul brood, you burn the whole hive, lock, stock, and barrel. And it was pretty rare. It wasn't real common. And then there was a couple other little minor diseases. And I had hives back then, and I had the same hives working probably for 10 years, 12 years, just keep requeening them. That is really rare anymore. It's hard to keep them alive.
And with you being the entomologist, walk us through what, with Bayer, especially since you're on the research side of it, what goes into as far as the preservation of the bees right now? Tell us some about what's going on.
So it's kind of a complicated, very multifaceted issue. There's like 4 P's that affect bees in general. And when we talk about bees in the scientific community, we tend to focus on all kinds of bees. So we focus on native pollinators, and most of the bees that are actually in the native ecosystem are solitary. They're not colony-based where they all hang out in a big group. But the public, I think, often focuses on the honeybee side because they're generally charismatic. But so like the 4 P's that really affect honeybee and native pollinator health is just the pesticides, the parasites and pests they face. Poor nutrition is a really big one, and then some loss of habitat and some space restrictions and stuff.
That doesn't start with P.
I know. I don't remember my thesis.
I was following that too. I was like, oh,
It's
wait.
been
a
a
minute.
year. I have a really pretty slideshow with my thesis talk that I go into all of the 4 Ps, but I have failed my beekeeping community and I've forgotten them. The most important part of it, though, is that there are so many factors that affect honeybee health. It's really hard for even scientists to tease out the different factors and the different intricacies because it's never really one thing. When they get shipped around the country to pollinate crops like almonds and apples and cherries, they lose out on a lot of nutrition while they're doing that. Like Paul said, there are so many pests and different diseases that have cropped up from the globalization of beekeeping that it's really hard to isolate and protect from those issues. And then you do have different pesticides and stuff being produced. Farmers are not letting edges grow around their fields. We tend to plant single, like monocrops, where it's acres and acres and acres of the very same crop. That really reduces pollen diversity. And so there are a lot of factors that come into honeybee health. From like a regulatory side, Monsanto previously and now Bayer is actually really good about creating selective pesticides that don't affect pollinators. And we do a lot of testing on monarchs and on different honeybees and stuff at different life stages to try and make sure that our products going into the market aren't going to be harmful.
Aren't going to.
I'm
kill
probably
bees.
not allowed to say that. Luckily, I just work there.
Yeah, exactly.
Dennis, what kind of like plants or flowers are best for honeybees? And have you planted any special crops around there for
The
yourself?
number one on everything on them is clovers and the various those type of plants, and they're the best. They produce the most honey for and everything else. But you don't realize that honeybees are an invasive species. They were brought here by the Dutch back in 1650 or something like that. There was no large colonies of bees here before that. And it was all of the small single bees and all those. And our honeybees have basically replaced them.
Okay.
But they do a lot of pollinating.
Right.
Yeah. There's a lot of crops, like blueberries in particular. Honeybees are not actually suited for pollinating blueberries, but because they're an easily managed colony-based pollinator, we use them to pollinate blueberries anyway. And there are actually studies that show floral patterns and floral timings will change to meet the needs of honeybees rather than their native bee counterparts, and can actually edge native bees out of the ecosystem.
Yeah, so it's a double-edged sword.
It
really,
is,
for-
yeah. Honeybees are cool. They're so interesting to study. They have such an intricate social status, and they're well beloved by most people. Even if you're too afraid to go near them, you usually say like, I go to the DMV, I go to the doctor's office, I go anywhere, and they're like, oh, what do you do? Oh, you study bees. Wow, that's so cool. And it is cool.
Right.
But once you dig in and you learn more about them, and you see like how hard it is to keep bees alive, and you see the different effects they have, it can be a little disheartening to get into some of that, but it's still important to know.
Right.
So I have a question. I've seen a couple of videos of beekeeping, and I see a spray that goes on. Does that calm the bees, or what is that all about?
So what you're seeing is actually smoke. It's appropriately called a smoker, and it actually is just it has a bellows on it. I didn't bring one. It has a bellows on it, and it opens up, and you build a little fire in it, and then and it's got a spout, so when you squeeze the bellows, it puffs out smoke, and smoke does calm them, and so that's why if you see a video of us, we'll put smoke down first, and then we'll go in and open the hive or whatever. You use it throughout to keep them calm.
The way smoke works is, it's like, oh my God, the woods is on fire. Let's go fill ourselves with honey. And that calms them down.
Oh, so they're honey drunk whenever.
Yeah,
the-
it's
all
kind of
this
like
is going on.
Thanksgiving dinner.
Right.
Let's eat while we can.
Right.
At least while we
Eat
can.
and nap.
They needed honey in their gut to make new wax. So if their tree burned down and they had to go somewhere else, If they're all full of honey, then they can start making new comb.
They're prepping for the future.
Right.
Yes.
They're
Exactly.
in survival mode at that point.
Is the queen just chilling at this point? I mean,
Yeah, it depends on how much you disturb them while you work them. The queen is always kept by like a retinue of little nurses, and they just kind of follow her around all the time. She's kind of got a squad. So as long as they're feeding her, she's perfectly content. She can't feed for herself. She can't really get around by herself too much. So she has this group of followers that kind of nurse her along and kind of point her which way to go, where to lay the eggs. But if you pull the frame with the queen on it, she'll get skittish and she'll start moving. But otherwise, she just kind of hangs out.
okay, so you say pull the frame.
Okay,
so we have,
yeah.
here we go.
For the Facebook Live crew, I'll describe for the podcast listeners, but we have a sample hive here that we can walk you through.
Be free.
Yes,
'cause I wouldn't be sitting here.
No bees. Yes, they would be very small anyway. So the bottom of the hive is called the baseboard. Okay, and then you have. If you've ever seen a beehive, you normally don't see just one box on it. You see a stack of boxes.
Right.
So your bottom two boxes are called your hive bodies. And that is where the queen lives and works. That is where the babies are raised. That is babies. We got to do that. Are raised. And then above that, you'll see smaller boxes. And that is where the extra honey is stored.
Oh, okay.
So inside each of these boxes is... Oh, do the first one, okay. Is what's called a frame. And these obviously are not drawn out because we don't have little bees living in here, but this is what we give them to start. It is just a rectangle of wood, and it's got wax in it that's embossed with like a honeycomb design. And if you put this on a hive, they will go ahead and build it all out into the honeycomb that you've seen, okay?
It's a six-sided cell. Each cell is
Yeah.
perfect, six-sided, and they're just a little bit angled up.
Oh, wow.
Yep, and then of course, we've got a cover to put on it to keep them out of the rain and everything.
So you've got multiple bees doing multiple things in the bottom two boxes. And you said the queen works.
Yeah. The queen is the sole reproductive female of the hive. She is the only one that actually has developed ovaries so that she can actually lay the eggs. There are drones, which are the male bees. They're kind of fatter and more bullet shaped. They've got really big eyes, so they're pretty easy to spot. They do what normal men do. They sleep and they eat and they take up space.
Wow! Speaking of shots fired.
At the end of the year, they actually get kicked out into the cold. They
Oh,
are not
no.
kept when the colony overwinters, so it's a tough luck to be a bee guy. And then the workers are the ones who do everything else in the colony. So depending on their age, they have a different caste and a different job that they do. Some of them clean out the cells. Some of them build new cells. Some of them are nurse bees, so they're feeding the young larval bees that are growing up. And then after about 3 weeks of age, they start becoming foragers, and that's when they leave the hive. They'll go out and collect pollen and collect nectar from flowers, and then they come back and they give it to other bees within the hive, and they produce the honey.
So, as a part of this, like how many eggs will a queen lay in a mating season, or?
That is a really good question. So a queen only mates once. When she is a young queen, she hatches out and she flies. She'll actually go on several mating flights, and she fills up, for lack of a better word, and then that keeps her through her lifespan. So 2 to 3 years is
Okay.
about average life expectancy for a queen these days. Eventually she'll run out and stop being able to produce fertilized eggs. Probably within a season, gosh, I'm not sure. It's a lot of eggs.
Yeah.
It's definitely thousands.
Thousands of them.
A standard honeybee hive can be anywhere from about 20,000 to 100,000 or more bees. Like 20,000 is the low end, like when they're coming out of winter, and 100,000 is like primo summer. They're in full honey production.
Also now, over the winter, the bees that are in there will live the whole winter.
Yeah,
When it's busy and going crazy, they live what,
6 weeks
6 weeks at the
on
most.
average.
Oh, really? So, but once
They work themselves to death.
right, literally work themselves
They'll
to death.
they'll wear their wings off to the point that they drop out of the sky and can't make it back.
That's it. Wow.
Holy cow.
So it fairly replenishes itself, but are there any things that you guys do to help bolster the population, so to speak?
Yeah. So you can often supplement them. During the winter time, we make bee candy, which is just like a sugar board that we pack and we put it on the hive so they have sugar, carbohydrates to keep them going through the winter. You can give them like pollen supplements, kind of like their protein powder, so they can help bulk up with brood. And then something we just did last Wednesday, we requeened. So we had a couple of hives that we thought were not doing well. They didn't have a very good pattern of the larval bees. And so we ordered 2 new queens, and we went in and we found the original queens, and we did away with them. And then we put our new queens in.
We euthanized them.
Yeah, that's a good way.
Do you guys do a whole thing? Is it a whole deal? Is there a ceremony to get rid of this queen?
There probably should
Is
be.
there a coup?
It
It
is.
definitely involved a very nice cowboy boot.
Yeah,
Alright.
that's.
So you said you order these queens. How does that work?
There are queen producers all across the country. Most of them are in warm places like California, and Hawaii is a big producer, like on Kona. But there are even local beekeepers that will rear queens. You have to take a frame of brood, which is the baby bees, from egg to little squiggly guys, and you have to like select them out of the cells and put them into what we call a queen cup, which then hangs in a frame, and then the bees will build the queen cell around her. It kind of looks like a peanut shape, and then you just keep them in a hive without a queen, and they'll take care of those queens, and then you can take those cells and sell them. And then you can ship them all the time. At Washington State University, we did a ton of queen rearing because we had a select breeding program. So we'd come in sometimes, there'd be an incubator on the counter just full of queen bees in their little cells. We'd ship bees in and out all the time. It's very, very interesting.
I bet. So a couple questions from people, then we'll get back to the process. Is there tricks to making honey taste better?
The flowers that you feed the bees. It's really the diversity of the flowers and the types of flowers. We used to have more beehives like on farms and places, and then Camp Vandeventer in Waterloo is where my brother lives, and that is where most of our hives are right now. And Camp Vandeventer has a wonderful diversity of different plants and flowers, and the honey from there is very, very good. It has a lot of flavor. It does not taste anything, and a lot of your listeners, I'm sure, have had our honey. It doesn't taste anything like grocery store honey. So
Now, honey, like you buy honey from the grocery store and stuff, it will all be mixed. Your spring honey, this one's crystallized, but it's a real light color.
Yeah, that was the next question, is actually why is the honey from different seasons different colors?
Yeah, it's all about the floral
About
nectar that
what
goes
they
into
put in.
it.
Now, the fall honey will always be darker, and it will have sometimes a stronger taste. It'll have a different taste. Some people don't like fall honey.
Yeah.
Right.
And this is because that's what's available now for the bees with the spring honey is honeysuckle, honey locust, clover, things like that that make a lighter,
A lighter brew.
not
some
as
almost would
lighter
be.
color
Yeah.
and lighter taste. And then by the time you get to the fall,
The summer is mostly clover.
They
Yeah.
get
Yeah,
progressively
right.
darker.
And that's kind
right.
of, if you found a grocery store honey that would be the equivalent, clover honey is what you'd likely find. It's a very baseline mellow flavor. And then,
the fall honey, of course, that's then you've got a lot of wildflowers. You've got your goldenrod. You've got things like that, ragweed, things like that give it more taste, give it more flavor. There's
Stronger flavor.
sometimes you'll get a floral component in there that you won't always be able to identify. But like right now, verbena is blooming along a lot of the roadways. You'll see it's kind of a bluish purple flower on a real scraggly, bushy stem. And that has been in our honey before, we think. and it gave it almost like a catnipy taste. It was very, very interesting. And when you find like the buckwheat honeys or the orange blossom honeys from different parts of the country, they'll have a different floral tone, and so that'll change the flavor.
And you were saying earlier that when I was asking about like what have you done to help, like repopulate, you've rescued a colony before, correct?
So
recently?
just last month, Dad and I were out driving around. We're just out on the back roads killing time.
Locals.
And our phones started blowing up. Everybody was calling Dad. They called Matt. They came to the house and knocked on the door. They called everybody in the family. It turns out that down by the softball field, on the fence there with the yellow on it, there was a swarm hanging, and it wasn't a huge swarm. It was about this big. But so we said, okay, let us get home and get our suits and or come over and look at it. And so we went over and we took a look, and it's like, yeah, it's a swarm. The thing about swarms, and we don't move them a lot because if it's hanging on the fence of the softball field, the next day it'll be gone. When the swarm hangs somewhere, what they're doing is they're sending out scout bees all over the place to find somewhere to live. And the main body of the bees is just resting instead of them all running around and expending energy. And so normally we're just like, just let them go for a day and they'll move on. But they had softball practice that afternoon, so it was literally get the bees off of the fence or they're going to have to spray them or something. So we suited up and we were able to it's pretty simple. We smoked them and then we just brushed them down into boxes because we had to get on either side of the fence with the way they were hanging.
Changing the fence.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we brushed them into boxes, and as we kind of got most of the bees off, the box that I had, all of the bees were flying towards it, the ones that were in the air. So that told us that we almost certainly had the queen in there, because the bees are going to go where the queen is. And that's the trick to like rescuing a hive, is if you don't get the queen, then they're not going to stay. So we hung around for a while. We let them kind of settle on the box and put them in the box and everything. And then we took them down to Camp Vandevenner, again, down in Waterloo. When you rescue something like you have to move them at least a mile or they're just going to go right back to where they were. So of course that's plenty of distance. We set them up down there. They were one of the hives that we requeened last week because we didn't know if they had a new queen or an old queen. And we checked them on Sunday and they appear to be doing really well. So if anybody saw the softball field bees, they're alive and well and building. It's a small colony, but they're building up just like we want them to.
Yep.
Wow.
We may not get honey off of them this year, but we will.
How long does that process normally take? Say if you started
Yeah.
today, how long would it take before you started getting honey?
A first year colony usually will not produce enough surplus honey that we can collect, because we always want to leave the bees with enough honey that they can make it through the winter. So they'll fill up those 2 deep boxes or brood boxes that are kind of make up the main hive body. And then the boxes that we have on the top are what we call the supers. And so the supers are where we stack those, and we'll take those off, and that's our excess.
When you're starting a new hive, a lot of times you have 2 boxes, you have 20 frames like this, and these all have to be drawn completely out to make cells to put them in. So that is where the honey, the stuff goes that would make honey.
Yeah.
And it takes 6 times as much honey to draw wax as it does to just make honey.
Yeah.
So, that is why you won't often catch us selling comb honey, because it's just too much. We can get a lot more honey than if we just clear the combs and put them back in the box.
Now, do you guys sell the beeswax at all? And
Absolutely.
Do you sell some of the beeswax?
Yeah. You can order it from our
wow.
Etsy store.
That's just right
guys
there.
have an Etsy store.
We have an
That's
Etsy
awesome.
store. There's all kinds of fun
Oh,
things.
wow.
1 ounce
Okay.
of beeswax.
So what all goes into assembling the beeswax there?
So, what I think first we should probably talk about extracting the honey and getting it out of the
Yeah,
hive.
right.
So
That's important.
let's start with that.
Maybe
So,
if we step back.
yes, step back
to the
step
beginning.
back to where the wax comes from. So to extract the honey, obviously we're checking the hives all along. We're watching these supers. We're making sure there's enough honey down in the hive. And so, but we do reach a point where there is surplus honey in the supers, and we will go ahead and take the supers off. And when you take them off, we take each frame out and brush the bees off, because we actually don't want to take the bees with us when we're trying to extract. So we get as many bees off of it as possible, and we take it over to our honey house. Which is also known as the dining hall at the camp. But we take them over to the honey house, and we have a couple pieces of special equipment. The first thing we have is knives that are electric and heated. So they have a heating element in them. And so the first thing you do is you take each frame and you slice off the top layer of beeswax.
Yeah, I've seen videos of that.
Yes,
Yeah.
and we've put up videos of that. We've got some on our YouTube channel also. But you slice off that top layer of wax, and you put that goes into a special bin that kind of drains the honey out of it. You have the wax left over. And then it's called an extractor, and it is just a round metal cylinder, and it's got spots inside for the frames to go. But then when you turn it on, it spins those frames and it flings the honey out.
Just a centrifugal force.
Right.
So.
You run them one way, and then you turn them, and then you run them the other way, and it empties them out. And you basically, this is always Dad's job, but basically you run them until the honey's all spun out of them. At that point, because we don't want them to have to build new wax, at that point they are ready to go back onto a hive and be filled back up, or we just let them clean them off, and then we put them into storage if it's the end of the season. So when we get done with all of that, we let those, what's called the cappings, we let those drain, and
That's the best honey. It's right under the cap.
because it's right under the cap. Yeah, and we also we have a second extractor that spins those cappings out and gets all the honey out of them. Then it's simply a matter of melting them down. You have to do some clarification usually, because there's a lot of
Particulates.
you know, whether it's leaves that have been picked up or bee parts or whatever. But yeah, we clean it up, and then
Now, this box will hold 10 frames. On our supers, we only put 9 in. So what that does is they draw the edge of the comb out past the edges here. So they're out wider like that, and you can take your knife and cut it off clean.
So it gives them, only putting 9 in gives them a little bit of extra space to.
Well,
Yeah.
they just draw it out longer.
The way a beehive is designed, they've been designed pretty much the same way since the 1850s with this guy, the Reverend L.L. Langstroth. He used champagne boxes to create stationary, movable frame beehives so that he could look at his colonies easier. But he found out that bees are like 1/8 of an inch, and if a space, or 3/8 of an inch, if a space is smaller than that, what we call the bee space, they will fill it with propolis, which is this sticky tree resin stuff that they make. It's absolutely a pain in the butt. People eat it for the health benefits, but I can't imagine what they are. It tastes terrible. With the pine tree. But if it's smaller than a bee space, they'll fill it with propolis. If it's larger than a bee space, they'll fill it with wax. And so especially by pulling out that frame, we give them extra space to work with. And so then they'll draw out the frames nicely, and it makes it have a lot more honey space on it.
So then you just rinse, cycle, repeat.
Yeah.
With the frame. So how many cycles do you get?
that depends on a lot of things.
How often we bust them in the
Right.
extractor.
Mostly it depends. It's actually the strength of the wood and everything, because eventually, usually the way that they die is by breaking in the extractor, and that's when, if I do have comb honey available, if you ever see I'm selling comb honey, that means that a frame broke, because then we just pull it out of the extractor and cut it up, and but occasionally, like we use hive tools to pry everything apart, and the propolis glues everything together, and so sometimes frames will just break from that repeated pulling on them and pulling against. Propolis is extremely sticky and extremely strong, and you actually do have to pry things apart.
So, Em, how do you know it tastes bad? Like,
I have tasted it.
Just making
it
sure.
gets stuck to your teeth.
So the same way that I know that goat milk is bad right from the goat, right?
Right,
It's
yes.
in there.
Experiential.
Yeah,
Right.
Experiential
exactly.
knowledge is key to beekeeping.
Two questions we've got. Is there a certain time of year when they produce more honey than normal?
When you have, just like all farming, it's all dependent on the weather, and you have to have that perfect balance of enough rain to make the flowers have nectar so that the nectar can be converted into honey, but you can't have too much rain or it will knock the nectar out of the flowers. So we usually get, if it's a good year, we get about 3 flows of honey. We'll get a spring, we'll get a summer, and then we'll get a fall. But it really, really depends on the balance of rain and sun days. Bees won't fly if it's lower than 55 degrees. They're not a fan of cloudy weather, and if it's too windy, they also can't fly. So you want to have those like nice weather days, but a good balance of rain and sun mix.
How has this year been for? I mean, because we've all noticed that
We've
there's been
been
a couple of
stressed.
really
Oh,
torrential
have it?
downpours.
Well, and even going back to last fall, I think we took off a little bit, but we didn't even have enough to send it to the library in the fall, which we'll talk about the library.
Yeah, we're gonna get to the
But,
library.
get to it.
But we only had like a case of pint jars in the fall because it was so dry. So this spring, and
Crowded some more.
and of course, our bees are down in Waterloo. Waterloo did not get 6 inches of rain. Waterloo got an inch or two. So we've been concerned, but it seems like right now we're okay. We just need some more rain soon.
Just a little bit more rain,
Yeah.
steady rain, not
Yeah,
the
the nice,
Yeah.
steady, not 6 inches.
right
That
in
doesn't
2
help.
hours,
That
right?
doesn't help
This
anybody.
next question here is the one that you guys probably get a lot. Is honey good for allergies? We talked about this.
One of the things we talked about
Yeah,
before
we were talking about this before the show because I back after Em was born, my allergies got super bad. I'm not saying it's Em's fault.
It's your fault, man.
But it's
Just-
Em's fault.
I'm willing to take that
So
responsibility.
I saw an allergist. I got the allergy shots and everything, and I asked him. I'm like, I happen to have a lot of honey around. Is it helpful to take it's usually a teaspoonful a day is what you hear. And he said, well, he's never seen any scientific literature that really proves one way or the other that it's beneficial for allergies, but also it wouldn't hurt me to, if I want to try it, go ahead, because there's not going to be any, any
Right,
problems from it. And we've had people come to us experientially and say that it helps them. So I will not sell you a jar of honey saying, here, this will help your allergies.
Right.
But I will sell you a jar of honey saying it's supposed to be within a 15-mile range. So
Right.
like even honey from Waterloo is close enough that it has all the same pollen and everything that we
Right.
have here. And so I will sell you a jar saying this is considered local honey to you. Local honey is within 15
within
miles.
15 miles.
Yeah.
So, and because we've all seen the TikToks and stuff where you add honey into onion. I know onions is one of them, and then there's been some other things, and the sugars and the honey and the onions mix, and they do their magic, which
And
you
then
know
you-
a lot more
and-
about than I do.
And then
But
you're
you
young
take
for 57 years.
right, and then you're taking teaspoons of that
Yeah.
as well. That's supposed to have.
That sounds awful.
Antibiotic
I have to
benefits.
say that
I know, right?
sounds incredibly awful.
I just work here.
Here's my question: since you're the bee pro, what would be the scientific reason that the honey from within 15 miles would benefit you?
If I had to guess, it is because
Yeah.
honey will contain at least a small portion of the pollens that are being collected by the bees and being accumulated in your local area. So, like we said, the fall honey is very dark and very rich. It's got a lot of wildflower tones, and so more likely than not, it has at least trace amounts of ragweed pollen and the goldenrod pollen and the stuff that really bothers people in the fall. If you're really looking for allergy care, you could try like a fresh bee pollen supplement or like dried bee pollen. Like, we don't usually do stuff like this because it's a little tricky, and they say fresher is better because it hasn't been degraded by like heat treatment and stuff. But even, like Mom said, even scientists are really kind of on the fence about it, and I think even now there's no like concrete
No empirical data one way or the
yeah,
other.
one way or the other.
So since you're a scientist, are you on the fence about it?
I have always kind of had the opinion that it might help.
Yeah,
I've
right,
never
yeah.
I've never done a study on it. Honestly, we do not eat that much honey.
Now you've let away our biggest family secret.
We sell it all to you, and there's none left for us.
The curtain has been ripped
Yes,
away.
you have discovered our dark secret.
None of us drink tea. It is great for barbecue. It is great for making bread.
Makes good barbecue sauce.
Yeah, but we honestly, like, I have known people who have come up and said they eat a pint jar in a week, and I'm like,
That's
okay,
That's a lot of honey.
that's cool.
I probably use and I use it for cooking, and I probably use a pint jar in a year or two. So,
Oh wow.
We keep a lot of crystallized honey around.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that honey never goes bad, correct?
Correct.
It's one of the very few foods, if not the only food, that never goes bad.
Chris, how'd you know? Were you reading about honey before this?
He must have been. I feel like he's a ringer.
I've got like 3 jars of honey.
Why am I here if Chris?
No. Listen, there's no initials after my name. There's initials after yours.
Yeah.
So
They have actually found honey in Egyptian tombs that is still good. It is, and
Reliquefied it, and the pollens told them what plants were growing there.
Holy, so like reverse DNA on pollen or
Yes.
on honey.
yeah.
Wow.
So it's kind of like Jurassic Park, but not.
on the food side of it.
It's like Jurassic Park, except for it's nothing like Jurassic Park.
Yeah,
Exactly.
pretty much.
We're not
Good
creating
job, Mom. Good
brontosaurus.
analogy.
That's what I'm here for. I'm like color commentary. But also something else we were talking about before the show is a lot of times you will get honey and it turns to it kind of sugars is what we call it. It solidifies. And it's still good. It can still be. I personally like to use it for cooking like that because it's easier to measure. It's a little bit less messy. It's still very sticky. And it's also easier if you're going to spread it on toast or something because you can actually spread it. But if you do ever have honey that has sugared and you want to liquefy it, the best way to do that is to just put it in warm but not boiling water and just let it sit. And it will slowly reliquefy. Don't ever put it in boiling water or the microwave because that is going to kill all of those great enzymes and
beneficial.
denature a bunch of the beneficial things. So if you want your honey to really stay honey, you want to be gentle with it.
Right.
Our stove has one of those warmer burners.
That's what I was thinking. I
They
was
go to 140 degrees.
right because I forget where I've got the one jar of honey. I think we were on vacation down south, and I bought a jar when we were down there. And it's kind of crystallized, and I was like, "Well, I know it's not bad, but
Yeah,
what
it's
do I
not
do
bad.
with it?" So, I'm gonna try that later.
Because
Yeah,
honey
right.
gets dried, the bees actually put it into the cells as this nectar enzyme mixture, and then they fan it with their wings, and they get it down below a certain moisture point. It reaches like 18% moisture, and then it's considered honey. And it has a ton of antimicrobial properties. Then it also is below that moisture threshold, and that's part of why it doesn't mold or spoil or go
Right.
bad.
There's not a lot of water in it.
There's just no way for things to grow in it, even
Right.
with the sugar content it has.
One thing I wanted to on the beeswax. What are some good uses for beeswax?
That is another great question. A lot of what beeswax is used for is finishes. You can make a wood finish. I think Matthew does olive oil and I forget what's in. I think it's olive oil and pine resin and beeswax, and he just melts it all together and he calls it trees wax and uses it. Well, yes, and uses it as like a wood finish. He makes knives and stuff, and he uses it as a wood finish. It's also fantastic if you like to sew. You put it on your needle; it makes it go through the thread, through the fabric easier. It's fantastic if you have a jacket like a Carhartt or something that has an actual metal zipper on it. If your zipper sticks, just rub some beeswax on it, and that loosens it up. Of course.
Carpenters and plumbers and people, when you put screws in the wall, they will always.
Use it to kind of keep the friction down as it's
Yeah.
going in. So this may be a dumb question. Is it edible? Is it not edible?
No,
It's considered, I think it's considered food grade, especially if
Yeah,
you've gotten
it's,
yeah.
from like a good source.
Like-
So you'll see a lot in lip balms. It's not tasty.
No.
Is it worse?
Again,
It
experiential.
is not
right?
worse than propolis, but it is
No,
not.
no, it's
good.
not nearly as bad as propolis. But
well, it's kind of chewy.
well, like
Yeah.
if you've ever had comb honey, which again you don't see it a lot, but when you eat comb honey, you actually put it all in your mouth, you chew it, and it's like those wax bottle candies we had back
Yeah,
in the
way
old
back,
days.
yeah,
when
back
we were
hard, yeah.
But I mean, you can, right? But you
I'm
can.
old, is what she's trying to say.
Oh, so am I. But you can chew the wax, and it's kind of like a chewing gum. It's kind of a, I don't know that you really, if you really want to swallow it or spit it, it's not going to
Right.
hurt you either way.
Right.
But it's not something you're going to be like, oh, hey, would you like a bite?
Yeah,
it's,
right.
it's,
Well,
Well, I just didn't know,
well,
like,
Dusty might.
I'll
Well,
use,
maybe,
right,
yeah.
yeah, he's
You
that
never
kind of
know.
guy.
I'll eat anything.
It's like in the wintertime, I'll make like, chocolate covered peanut butter balls, and the recipe I have is wax,
Oh,
puts
yeah.
a little bit of wax in
Oh,
it
yeah.
to help keep it from.
Yes, it would definitely.
So it would be good to go into something like
Yep.
that. Okay.
It's traditionally been used back in like the Middle Ages and stuff when they were keeping bees in Europe. It was actually more valuable for the wax because they would use it for machinery and leather finishes and different stuff like that. And as far as I know, the Catholic Church is still the largest purchaser of beeswax in the world because all Catholic candles are pure beeswax.
Pure beeswax. That's interesting. I did not know that. You
big-
guys are teaching me all
Some
kinds
big
of stuff
facts.
tonight.
Here's
That's
something,
awesome.
something else we
Holy
should
cow.
talk about is M kind of mentioned the Langstroth hive and that evolution. And I have a big one of these and forgot to bring it, but everybody has seen the old style beehives that are, it's called a skep, and it's the old style beehives that are like grass woven and in a circle and kind of in a spiral. And so, like in the Middle Ages, when Emma's talking about, this was a beehive. I got a little one for the Facebook folks. This was a beehive, and you had to destroy all the wax.
The whole thing.
When you got you lifted this up and.
No, not always. They would make this, and they would have the queen and all them in here, and then they would make little, out of the same straw. They would make little things about so high that they would set under this, and then that would be their supers, and they would sometimes put a couple of them on.
Right.
But when they didn't extract with the centrifugal force and everything,
Right.
you smashed the comb and so you had a lot more wax than
Kind of like
we
mushed
did.
it out, right?
Yeah, so and let it drain, and so you got a lot more wax than we did. But like Em says, there were so many more uses,
Right.
than we have
They
now.
actually wanted the wax, probably.
Yeah,
more.
they wanted the wax.
We wanted to wax more back then than is necessary now. People are more interested in the honey.
Right now,
Well,
the
we
honey's
have
the
electric
thing.
lights now.
Yeah, right.
exactly.
That's
Yeah, we don't need to do
important. So speaking of people wanting the honey,
Oh
I
no!
was when is that's go ahead, Dusty, because I know that's where you were
the
going.
library honey.
That's what I
Okay,
was.
so
That's right where I was going next.
Let's talk first
Time
of
to
all.
go.
First of all, the big answer is we like I said, we were in the hives Sunday. They are starting to make honey. If we had to guess, and this is again based on are we going to get rain and everything, I would say probably mid-June.
I would say that's probably good. They're looking good. They're filling out their supers. Things are drawn out nicely. We are. Some of the one I think the most I saw was one that was half full of honey, but it wasn't capped yet, and so we have to wait for like 75% of the frames to be capped, so that when we mix it all together, our honey's still going to hit that moisture point where it won't spoil. So knock on wood, cross your toes. Mid-June or end of June at the latest.
And the reason that, if anybody doesn't know, the reason that we call it the library honey is because in 2020 we had no way to sell our honey. We were all locked down and in.
Sad.
And also, at the same time, the library had a couple of crises with the roof and the air conditioners.
Also sad.
Also sad, yes. And our family loves the library.
Yeah,
We save a lot of money at the library, so we decided that year to give all our honey to the library, let them sell it, and let them keep the money. The following year, Miss Carol, who you guys know
Miss
and
Carol,
love,
yep.
right? She came back to me and she's like, "Listen, we don't have to keep the money, but we're happy to sell this. You guys did such a big favor for us. We're happy to sell it for you and give you the money." And so we talked it over, and we said it's not fair to them if they sell it, they're selling it for us. We don't want to do that. So what we do now is we split it 50-50. So if you buy a $10 jar of honey at the library gets $5 of it. We get $5 of it. That helps us cover the cost of the jar and,
Right.
and some things like that.
New boxes.
New boxes.
hives.
Yeah, so
Um,
frames
That's
we
awesome.
bust.
Yeah, so that kind of helps us cover our costs, but then we're still the library gets something for selling it. We found that it's a great way. Then everybody doesn't have to get a hold of us and meet up with us and everything else. It kind of gives a central location. And then when you go to the library to buy a jar of honey, get a couple of books and check
Right.
out everything they got going on.
Because they have a lot of great things
They
there.
have a lot of-
We're going to get Miss Carol on here in the next
Yeah.
in the next month or so because
Very good.
she does a lot of great things for the community, especially the kids in the community
Yes.
in the summertime.
Yes.
And you guys are a big part of that. I know you guys have done the belt stuff down there.
We also yes. So
Belt
Matthew.
stuff. She's laughing at me.
Matthew is the family leather worker for the most part, but as part of their they try to do a craft class every month, and so as part of that, we've done a couple of leatherworking classes. We have a couple more that we're kind of planning we're going to do, but yeah, we went in and we made bookmarks the first night and learned to stamp and make bookmarks, and then last time we actually made regular men's leather belts.
Yeah, they looked awesome.
Yeah, they were, and everybody got to make their.
Right, and things like that with selling the honey, that's a great way for the library who doesn't have a big revenue source to help keep the lights on, repairs for the roof, anything that they need. So, make sure you guys get down, check it out the end of June. I know that you guys will probably post it somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm sure the library will
And the
post
library
it
will
too.
post it as
Carol-
well.
Carol is our
Got it.
biggest promoter.
Yes.
Where else can you get your honey?
For the most part, that's our main place we sell it. We always go to the Dupo Fall Festival, and that's kind of our end of the season. We take off our last honey of the year right before it, usually the week before, because we're like, oh, we got to get it ready. But we usually have our fall honey at the Fall Festival. I think this year we had, like I said, a case and a half or something. It all sold out at the Fall Festival. But yeah, we have it there. Otherwise, I mean, you can always, if you know any of us, you can always reach out to one of us.
Right.
But mostly we try to run it through the library because
Didn't somebody say something about an Etsy shop earlier?
Yeah, we do have an Etsy store and a YouTube channel because we're so cool.
Yeah.
It's bransonsgeneralstore.com. I'm just kidding. But it is Branson's General Store is kind of our running tagline. And so you can Google that and you can find our Etsy store. You can find all of my uncle's different leatherworking videos with our YouTube channel. And
there's a few beekeeping
a
ones.
few bee stuff on there. But the best way to get your honey fix is really just to head for
At
the
the
library
library,
and hope
right.
for the best.
Hope for the best. It's like survival of the fittest.
Sometimes it's a hot
You know what?
commodity.
This spring, if you see the library, follow the library Facebook page, and if you see them post about honey, get in there because I know that the whole town has been
Yeah.
They're
like
waiting and
waiting
right,
and
right.
waiting.
And there are those people that eat a jar of weed.
Right.
Yeah.
There's that one guy.
I think Miss Carol's one of them.
Yeah. Here's one more question. Have they had any bee scares where they were attacked? Well,
If we had done this podcast a week ago,
oh wow.
last Sunday, I got stung in the corner of the eye. It's still sensitive, but half of my face was puffed up. My eye was like swollen shut.
Tell them why that happened.
No, we don't have to.
It turns out that if you're going to weed whack around the beehives, you should probably wear a bee suit and
didn't
not
have
just
a
go
bee
out there
suit.
just like this and
didn't
hope
have a
that
bee suit.
you don't get stung in the eye.
I'm not that allergic. Working on my master's thesis, I had to work a lot of bees. And I would have to work sometimes like 30, 40, 50 hives a day. And so there were definitely times that I got stung like 15, 20 times a day.
Jeez.
That was not great. I actually don't like bees anymore.
Whatever.
I was here by force. I did not agree to this. I'm having a good time,
Yeah,
but
right.
this is not my choice.
Right.
So I would say that because we know we're not allergic, getting stung isn't like a major alarm bells go off. Anytime you get stung somewhere on the face or in the neck, those are areas with more blood flow and they're more sensitive.
It's not fun.
It's not fun. I get a little more nervous that I'm going to have like a serious reaction when I get stung in those places. But by and large, we've never had like a huge issue
Where
with
they
getting
swarmed
stung.
you or
Yeah,
something.
There are bees that are kind of functioning as the guards of the hive. So even if you like drop a box, most of the bees are going to go up in the air and they're going to buzz and they're going to sound mad. But only like a quarter of those bees are actually going to go for you and try to sting you. And then by the time you move like 20, 30 feet away, most of those bees have tailed off unless you've got a really mean hive. And we try to make sure that we requeen those mean hives so that we can walk to our cars in relative ease.
Do you name the queens?
We really should. Sometimes we have.
We have somebody that has asked us to put bees at their house, and so we have a hive up in Troy that is a friend of ours, and their queen is named Penelope.
Oh my gosh.
We have not yet. I'm looking for, if the listeners have any suggestions, I'm looking for a great softball or Dupo or something themed name for the swarm that we caught at the softball field. So, we're taking suggestions on that.
We are.
Yes.
That's awesome. We are now.
Yes, I just decided.
That's
We do
awesome.
occasionally give them nicknames. We had a hive last summer that they were always hanging on the front of the hive, and so Matt always called those his front porch bees because they were just like chilling out on the front porch. So we'll occasionally
awesome.
nickname them, but we don't officially.
No official name.
No official name.
It's hard to personalize 30,000 individuals.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So, but we will refer to them as the softball swarm, and so that we can.
Yeah, sorry. I just can't stop thinking about a quarter of those bees chasing you for the first 30 feet. She didn't make that sound very good.
Listen,
Don't
if I
worry.
don't make it past the first 30 feet,
Yeah,
they're
right.
going to get me
Yeah,
anyway. I'm not
exactly.
running that much
There's
further than about
probably
30,
only going to
40
be
feet.
about 10,000 bees after you.
Right.
For about the first. Sometimes they're more aggressive.
Not that many.
No.
Yeah,
I'm
sometimes it's
looking
more
for the-
like 10.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's good.
don't drop a box.
Right,
That's
exactly.
your first step. If you
Bottom
drop
line,
the
just stay
box,
away from the
you've
bees,
made an
right?
error and you need to reevaluate
Yeah.
your life choices.
So
Because I know I am allergic to bees and
Oh,
wasps,
no.
and if I even get grazed, I got grazed one time and the whole side of my face just
Well, the great thing about bees compared to wasps and hornets and other nasty things is bees really aren't out to get you.
right.
Like if you see a bee on a flower, it's not going to sting you. It's not going to go after you unless you step on it. I got stung one time. I was walking not too close to hives, but a bee got caught in between my glasses and my face. And it caught me right on the bridge of my nose, which again is another one of those face swells
Right.
up. But I mean, that was not because the bee was trying to attack me. That was because we got
It got
tangled
trapped
up.
and it was-
I
right.
they'll go after dark hair. Because their natural predator here is the bear, and so they don't like dark things. That's why bee suits are
Dusty and I
white.
don't have a problem.
Yeah, right.
You don't have
Yeah,
any problems with that,
Right.
do you,
I don't have a
Dennis?
problem.
Right, but I have definitely in the past, if I've gotten too near a hive without a bonnet on, I've had them get caught in my hair and sting me. Well, that's not because they're attacking me. It's because. So if you see a bee flying around, don't start swatting at it. Don't start freaking out.
Just let it be.
Just let it be, right?
it be.
Of course,
Get it? Feel like that?
check your soda cans if you're in the
Yeah,
summer
right,
that they're
yeah.
not in there. But there are other things that sometimes get confused with bees, like wasps and yellow jackets and
jackets,
hornets and
right.
stuff that will go after you. So I mean, it helps if you kind of know exactly what a bee is versus those
Yeah.
other things.
When a bee stings you, it dies.
Right.
Yeah.
It loses its stinger and then it dies.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Right.
So they don't do that unless they have to, unless
Right.
they feel like their hive's in danger.
Hornets,
Usually,
wasps, and
I-
stuff,
I
they don't.
think-
They can keep stinging.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
they
time
just-
that I got grazed was a wasp, but
Yeah.
like I think I can count on one hand the number of times I got stung by a bee.
Oh, yeah.
And wasps are way worse. 'Cause
Oh,
it-
yeah.
And if you see it coming out of the ground, it's not a bee; it's a yellow jacket.
here's
Stay away.
here's another thing about telling wasps and bees apart that drives me crazy. It starts with Winnie the Pooh, but a lot of illustrations
Winnie
you
the
see, we're getting back to Winnie the Pooh,
Yeah, right.
Dusty.
Here
we
Everything
go.
else full
I'm not,
circle.
I don't know that I want to know the
No.
origin of this.
We'll tell you later. So anyway, in Winnie the Pooh, the beehives are always hanging in the tree, and they're always the round, kind of grayish brown thing. That is not a beehive. That is a hornet's
Hornet's
nest.
nest.
It is not full of honey. It's
Right.
full of paper. If you see something coming out of those, go the other way.
Right.
Now we have definitely exactly. We've had calls and somebody's like, there's a beehive in my tree and they're attacking people, and we go and it's a hornet's nest, which, we'll still suit up and take care of it. But that's an important thing to know. If you see the nest hanging in the tree, don't mess with that because it's not a
Right.
beehive.
You're right. Yeah, you're much
And
braver
you
than
see
I
it-
am
you
because
see
these things are.
Yeah, you see
Yeah.
it all over in pop culture. You see
You
beehives.
haven't seen our suit.
Well, yeah.
They can't sting.
In a suit, I'm not concerned about a hornet's
Yeah.
nest. But I don't walk up to them without one either. So,
Well, the last thing we'll talk about here is Scouts. You guys were a big part of the Boy Scouts here in Dupo for a long time. That's where we've came up together. I remember camping trips getting canceled because you were pregnant with her.
Sorry.
And then obviously the long car rides when she was a baby.
singing Winnie the Pooh songs,
Yeah,
Chris.
singing from like Virginia to St. Louis.
And they were all Winnie the Pooh songs.
Dusty
Yeah,
sat
they
in the
were.
back with the
Yeah.
sing-along Winnie the Pooh book and sang Winnie the Pooh songs to him.
Yeah, I was quite the character in the Explorers. We went to Philmont. I was on the Philmont journey with the Bransons. I don't think, were you on that?
No.
Oh,
Mom
no.
and altitude don't mix.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't. But it was
I've been
awesome.
out there 8 times.
Oh my gosh. If you've never been, okay, so you walk out, you take this hike, and you walk out and the most beautiful landscape scenery you've ever seen, and then a guy sits down with one of them wooden flutes for a little, and it's life changing. I mean, if you've never, I'm serious.
It is, but why don't you do that as the intro music? It also became like a completely different podcast.
Right. Yes. It's
So anyway, we just had to go off on that tangent because you guys are well known in the community for
in the Scout community.
for all the Boy Scouts. I had my Boy Scout uniform out that I was in when the bull tried to kill us in Koki.
Oh, the memories.
So there was a scout event where a bull.
What
got
kind of
loose.
scouts were you guys in?
Yeah, it was wild.
We were out wrestling with bulls
Yeah,
and
nothing too crazy, but we are coming up on the end here, end of times. Not the end of times. So speaking of end of times, the bees are supposed to be the end of time signaler, right?
Albert Einstein did not say that thing about if bees die out, humanity will follow in 5 years.
So
if
that-
you take anything from that podcast, please take that. If honeybees were to fail as an ecological point, it would really, really affect our agricultural system. It would take away almost every kind of produce you can think about. Apples, almonds, asparagus, like all the way down. Pretty much anything that isn't a grain is pollinated by either a honeybee or a native pollinator. So it's not going to be good. But the good news is that although there are so many more challenges facing honeybees, there are a lot of preventative measures working to protect them. People are getting a lot more involved through like local governments and just planting pollinator gardens, participating in No Mow May and leaving their clover out for foraging bees. There's just a lot more social advocacy and a lot of different things. So they're not going to disappear tomorrow. They're probably not going to disappear in the next 50 years. But we should be cognizant of the effects we have on our local environments and then our global environments, and work to do things that protect and preserve pollinators.
well, and that's it's education. It's
Yeah.
like nights like tonight, where I've honestly, we laugh about it, but I've learned a lot.
Yeah.
I've always seen these kind of things, and I'm like, oh, I wonder what the process is. Because I love honey, but I never, and I knew where it
Yeah.
came from, but not the whole process. So it's about education, and that's why I'd asked, what are you planting specifically, or are you planting anything in the area for that? But that's great knowledge.
Resources like Missouri Botanical Gardens, Illinois Department of Conservation, Missouri Department of Conservation, the Xerces Society. There's tons of different avenues that you can follow to kind of learn about the wildflowers you should be planting, the different ways that you can promote honeybee and pollinator health in your area. So there's a lot that regular people can do besides supporting your local beekeepers. And we're always ready to come and talk about them and teach people more about them so that they can appreciate them too.
Say it, Ellen.
Y'all ever heard of bees?
Is that how you open?
It's like the
your
opening
show?
line.
That used to be my opener for like every school presentation I did, and then for my thesis it switched over to bees and cowboy hats. and
awesome.
bee haw. But yes, now you have an answer if somebody ever asks, y'all ever heard of bees?
Yeah, well, we've learned so much about bees
Yes.
tonight, and it was awesome. A whole lot of interaction tonight with people with questions, a lot of viewers. So, thanks for coming out, and thanks for being the Bransons. You guys are-
Don't think we could do anything else in this
no,
moment.
yeah, at this point, you're just Branson. So, that's it for tonight. Thanks a lot, guys. Our outro music is not working well,
Again.
but the microphones are doing great tonight.
Right. Great sound.
Beep, boop, boop,
There we go.
beep,
There we
boop,
So
go.
there it is. And we're going to end with that. Go ahead.
beep, doop, beep, boop,
Thank you
beep,
for listening to
boop,
Talk Tiger
boop.
Podcast. See you next time.
Good night, guys.